go. Hi, I'm Jean Bennett, and I'm doing the one thing that I always say don't do, and that's stand between people and food. So I'll go kind of fast. Who's read the Phoenix Project? Yeah. Who's heard of the Phoenix Project, even if you haven't read it? Okay. So I want to talk about a business simulation that we do that helps with DevOps. You already heard this morning that DevOps isn't a template and that there isn't a set of rules. Netflix can't give you the rule book and say if you do this at home it's going to work. So DevOps fails a lot of ways, and you heard some of them this morning. Lack of culture, lack of competences. People think, oh, it's a new framework or a new roadmap or a new template, kind of like ITIL. Maybe it replaces ITIL. No, it doesn't. A lot of people say, well, it's just tools. If you get the right tools and the right technology, and I'm sorry to the Taos people, I just realized my tiara's over there. I was going to wear it for you, but anyway. They'll say, come to a class, we'll give you a certificate. Then you'll be smart, you go back, you can implement DevOps. Or they've got a real need for speed. Where do I buy it? Somebody talked about the tube of DevOps, just buy it, spread it on. Doesn't happen that way. DevOps is a transformation. It's a journey. And without the people and the cultural part of it, it can fail. And it's not me, but some of the quotes here. Gartner, cultural resistance will create significant failure rates when starting with DevOps. Organizational changes are far more challenging, and enterprises are not ready for DevOps but will not survive without it. And then this one I like from Adam Bertram. DevOps cannot be obtained with a simple overnight check and a little training. It's a transformational approach. It takes time, it takes a lot of work, and dedication before a team can implement a DevOps process. So what goes wrong? In DevOps, it's a buzzword. I want to do DevOps. What does that mean? People try and join DevOps and say, okay, we'll implement it, but they don't have a clear understanding of the roles and the responsibilities. If I'm a leader, I'm used to telling people what to do. Well, DevOps implies self-directed work teams. So now what does the manager do? We've got a lot of silos, them versus us. We don't have time to do it right. We've got to throw it over the fence. We've got quality issues that are discovered late in the process. And without the link between the people, the process, the product, and I would say even the partner, because some of you are working with vendors, you're working with outsourced organizations, consultants. Everyone needs to be considered and included in DevOps to be successful. Without management buy-in, we did talk, it's a ground-up endeavor, but it needs leadership and it needs buy-in. And that leadership needs to be able to fend off the people in the business who are saying, no, we want to do it the way we've always done it. So you need somebody there running interference and supporting you in your DevOps endeavor. Communication is a good one. We talk, we're good communicators. But how often do we really understand and hear what we're saying? And the other thing is that without, and he just said it beautifully, you have to provide the ability to learn, to experiment, to innovate. Because DevOps is not a template. It's not a set of rules. And each team, even I work for a giant company, and each team within it is self-directing. And nobody says, you've got to use this tool and that approach. The teams have to figure out what works best for them. So in order to do that, they've got to be able to experiment and to learn some. Just some quotes from CIO and some others about the IT skills that are being, that are hardest to find right now are leadership, communication, and collaboration. So this simulation is one way we found that helps with that. So how do we avoid failure with DevOps? We have to build awareness in the business, and a lot of that is done with your leader liaison, who is in fact a champion. Senior IT awareness and management. Learning to focus on people. This might mean changes in your HR process. It might mean changes in your compensation process, but we need to focus on people and their attitudes. And by the way, not everyone is going to be on board with DevOps. Some people are going to kind of self-select out, all right? But it's very, very important for the attitudes and the behaviors, building the skills and communicating throughout. But focusing on the teamwork and the collaboration, how do you do that? Well, one way is you stop measuring dev and ops separately. Maybe you give them the same objectives, the same goals. In fact, you connect the business value, the business goals with the devs, with the ops. So it's not my job is speed and your job is quality and stability. We all have a goal of providing business value. And that's hard because it's fun to be measured on speed if you're really good at speed, and you don't necessarily want to give that up. A lot of DevOps, he was just talking about processes and behaviors. You've got to deal with those. Tools are pretty easy, and they're what you like to do, and it's a natural inclination. We all like to deal with the tools, right? Well, tools is not going to be DevOps. You're not going to be successful if you focus only on the tools. Is automation required? Absolutely. Need automation. But really looking at how the team operates, how the team can work together and improve, and the culture first. The other thing is, you're kind of going to a training course on DevOps these 2 days. You go back to work Monday, and what happens? How do you put what you're learning into practice? And you actually need time to learn to apply what you're learning. So you need to figure out a way to say, okay, what they're all saying, how do I integrate that into my current way of working? And how do we look at it as a transformational approach? In a way, DevOps is an iterative, ongoing process of how a team learns to function and improve together. I promise you, if you get the special template from Netflix today, you're not going to go back home and know how to implement it tomorrow. You need to have some opportunity to practice it and to experience it. So one way that we found is with a game. It's a business simulation, and it's an interactive learning activity where, let's say you had your whole team. In this case, we can do it with public groups, but it's really nice with a team, a group of people face to face, giving them realistic content from the Phoenix Project. You become the characters, you become the situations from the Phoenix Project, and then you focus on specific learning objectives. But it's not a training session where somebody comes in and says, okay, here's how you do it. Because you see the do, reflect, think, decide kind of, that comes from ITIL. The way it's structured, there are different rounds, and each round you'll be coached through how to apply what you're learning. So why a business simulation? Well, if you go to training, I don't know if you're familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, the basic level of knowledge is we'll teach you something and you'll remember it. But can you put it to work in action? Can you apply it? Can you explain it? Can you analyze it, evaluate it, or maybe create a version that's going to work for you? And a lot of what the business simulation does is teach you, especially, nobody wants to do the kumbaya and all the touchy-feely. You all laugh when the other speakers have talked about, oh, we just love it out, Dev and Ops. You really would rather be sitting here, talking to email or something else. And this is a safe environment to learn some of the communication and some of the cultural things, some of the teamwork, and some of the rules. If you're familiar with the Agile Manifesto, you might have a DevOps Manifesto. What are the things what are the underpinnings that your team is going to use to operate? And you focus on relevant issues for yourself. So in the Phoenix Project simulation, there are 10 to 12 participants. It can go up to 16. Somebody plays a role. You can be the CIO or the CTO or the developer. And you deal with the issues from the book. You're experiencing the top 10 DevOps challenges. And not only that, it's that cycle, think, do, act, plan. decide is that you are, after each round, you stop and a facilitator says, okay, so if this happened in your organization, and they're saying, well, how do we solve it? I don't know. How do you solve it? It's the application of what you just learned, what you just experienced, that you need time to noodle through and figure out with your team, how are we going to handle this? It's not a matter of getting the right answer that the teacher says in the checkbook, because there isn't the right answer in the book, because it depends on you. Where's your team starting? What kind of skills do you have? What skills do you lack? What experience do you already have? Where are you in that journey? Makes a big difference. And so it's the reflection, the experimentation, and the discussion that really works in this simulation. And you're finding solutions for the beginnings of how do you go back home now and do DevOps. So round one, it's kind of fun, and I've got some of the game pieces with me in the other room. If you want to see them, you get your roles. So you're assigned to be, you know, HR or the business or whomever. And I'm totally out of control with the projector now. And you're given a project to work on. You get scored, and I'll tell you about the scoring in just a second. And afterwards, you talk about what went wrong. Sorry, what went wrong with my projector? Round two, you've got a huge backlog of IT issues. You don't have good, clear business priorities, and pressure is mounting. So round three, they throw in some, okay, is somebody doing awareness? I'm not this talented, honestly. Round three, the backlog increases, you get more requirements. And finally, by round four, you learn how to work together with IT and the business, setting priorities, how do you plan your work in process. And as long as it wants to go to the slide, I'm just gonna let it. Some of the things that they do, you can see here they're doing a stand-up meeting and they'll implement a Kanban board, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a Kanban, it could be Trello, whatever you use to visualize your workflow. The KPIs, how many successful deployments, what percentage of them are successful, how many errors, and you should see it increase. And the little graphs there, also you're tracked on the revenue and the share price of the company. So your performance actually will direct your score in the simulation. And here are just some of the subjects that come up that are talked about in the simulation, and the things that the facilitators can talk you through. What do you do with bottlenecks? How do you establish priorities? How do you know how much work and process you can handle? How to deal with the technical debt, the backlog? What if you've got silos? How do you break those down? And on. So when would you use a simulation like this? Maybe after you've got a little bit of foundation for the team. All right, so we all went to a course or we saw something online. We kind of have a sense of what DevOps is, but now you want to get it from here. Have you ever heard something, you go, okay, I got it, but you didn't really get it here? The simulation is kind of the next step. Okay, I've got the theory, now I want to apply it. You can also use it, and in one of the sessions that we did, the CIO came in and said, I want to learn. I want to learn what we're going to do. And he sat down and he played the session with them. So it's really good to have all of the business in there, not just Dev and Ops. If you want to assess your current status and where you are in DevOps, it's kind of an interesting tool. You want to develop IT's awareness of what Dev and Ops is. You want to explore solutions in your team. It's useful. Or maybe as you are really maturing, this is how we do it. I don't know if anyone saw that post recently. It was a few days ago on Twitter, and the UK government had a poster they put up that said, this is how we do it. It's okay to ask questions, not know the answer, ask for help. That kind of cultural thing. How do you teach people what you're like? And I blacked out the customer's name because I didn't actually get a release from him, but he said, you know, we've made really good progress in our DevOps journey. I wish we'd had a simulation like this 5 years earlier to really bring on some of the lagging people. So, you know. All right. So what are some of the teams who have participated in this simulation talked about afterwards, or what have they said they learned? Collaboration, the need to get together. Stop operating in silos is probably one of the most common. And everybody laughs at the picture of the little girl in the fire, and it says it worked fine on, you know, my machine, and or the wall, throwing things over the wall. But silos really is the number one thing, but also the importance of setting and managing priorities. If everything is an emergency in your organization, you're probably not doing DevOps really well yet. So how do you manage those priorities? How do you set aside the time to respond to incidents? Identifying and visualizing work capacity is an important piece of it. How do you identify what your constraints are? How do you do have you done a value stream map? Do you know what your capacity is for work in process? How can you limit it? How can you set it at the right, how do you obtain the right flow? Visual management, the Kanban board is just what we use in the class with a bunch of Post-its because it's easy. But improving IT and the business capacity for work in process limits is a really important one. And then how do you include the business, the devs, the ops? How do you get them all to come together for communication? And how do you do cross-training to get out of that silo mentality and organize for continuous improvement? And Nathan Hammond from Chef had spoke one time, I heard, and really he made sort of a fun little presentation, kind of like an Ignite about it, but it's not just DevOps. It's biz, dev, ops, security, networking, HR, government, whatever your entire business has to be included in this. So if you think it's just dev and ops, that's not true. Supply chain matters. You know, compliance matters. So finance matters, especially if you're asking for tools. Here's an example of some of the materials we use. It's a very interactive, face-to-face, just laminated cards, and you're going to pull whatever project. I mean, reread the Phoenix project, because that's what you'll get. And I guess the bottom line on it is it allows you to experience DevOps, and you get to see in real time. It's kind of hard in your own organization to see your progress over days, weeks, and months. In one day, in one session, you get to see how are you improving, and really how are the pieces of DevOps coming together the way they're supposed to work. So it's the experience, understanding the cultural and the behavioral aspects of it, and then pinpointing things that can help your teams implement DevOps and how to implement them in your own organization. So it will walk you through some of the key success factors that you may or may not have already put in place for DevOps. And I would encourage you to try it. So if you're interested, we have more information on it. But if not, the things that I talked through, some of the things where DevOps can fail, you do have to have a way to address those, because the tools are just kind of the gravy. It's got to be about the organization and the culture. So we do have more resources on it. I've got some business card for Daryl, who's a fellow in our organization, if you're interested in it. But am I good? All right.
We do have some time for questions, so if anyone has questions for Gene, please feel free to step up to the mic. And then once those wrap up, we will have lunch served. So lunch is not actually in the break room that you were in this morning or for the actual breaks. It is in the room just to the right of the registration desk. So we'll move to that when, as we break for lunch. So if you have any questions, now's your opportunity.
There's also going to be a book signing during lunch, so make sure to look for that.
Sorry, Julie, I don't read hand signals very well.